minutes of the previous meeting. I'm sort of working off. I don't like doing this really. I prefer it printed, so forgive me if I'm ponderous. Anything that's come up from the last meeting, anybody would like to mention? I'll take it in one block. I'm not going to go through it page by page. No? Okay, moving on then. Public question time. Now, I believe we have one public question, and that's Mr. David Orr, who's joining us. Thank you, David.
Yeah,
yes,
Mr. Orr had asked to speak directly in front of the item, which shouldn't be problematic, Chair. So there's only the forward vote.
Is the item next? Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll take it now. It's because we come back to it later in the meeting. Well, you have a review, Henry. Henry's going to speak on it. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay, all right. We'll move it then. So item 5, which is the work programme. So the committee, sorry, do I need to read this out, Jamie? Or who's presenting this?
I'll take this one, Chair.
Yeah.
So the committee will see that the next scheduled meeting is the 11th of November. We have quite a full agenda currently scheduled for that one as well, which we may need to thin out in our pre-agenda discussions. But obviously welcome to take forward any suggestions that members either in the room or online have for further items.
Matt Martin, yeah, Matt Martin, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a comment really. I don't know whether we have people online. If we do, can we have them up on the screen? You can't have them on the screen.
No, but you could, if you join the meeting on your laptop.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, so they can see through the owl at home, but I can't get it up on the screen.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much.
No, that's right.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that as well. Dave Mansell.
They're not working, Dave.
Oh, they're not.
You've got to speak up.
They shout.
My goodness. Okay. Still seems to be an echo.
Sorting it on someone's.
Well, someone's got their mic on.
It's hang out on his laptop. And I'm unusual. All actually members.
Is that off now?
It is.
Yeah, it's okay, Dave.
Okay, so, yeah, I wish to refer to, some items on the outcome tracker. All of which were taken in March, which is now just over 6 months ago. At that meeting, we made some recommendations and some requests. Reports come back to this committee. We're expecting recommendations to go to the executive. Now this has been raised since then. This was raised when we got to the outcome tracker in June. It was raised when we got to the outcome tracker in July. No one's paying any attention, or at least they're just not responding. And I'm not entirely sure who's not responding. It's listed down, Paul, I'm afraid it's got your name alongside it. And it says waiting feedback from the planning service. And it is now over 6 months that we've been waiting for that. You probably sense, I'm wondering what's going on. I think the least I expect is some sort of response, just to leave us in the dark and not do anything. Well, I know how that feels to me, and I hope others can understand how we might feel. The least that I'm expecting, and I believe this is council procedure. I don't think I'm asking anything unusual. I think what's happened is unusual and wrong. Now, what I believe should happen is we should see these items go up to the forward plans for this committee and for the executive. And I hope that can now happen in November. Now, a number of them, they're connected to listed buildings, connected to the energy plan. are related to the local plan. Now, we've got an item in November. I really hope that opportunity is taken to address the request and the recommendations we've made then. Not fully, because we asked quite a lot, but I'm hoping we can make a start on it. And I hope I've made the point sufficiently strongly for something to find you happy.
You mentioned it. Would you like to come back on?
I will do, and,
Yeah.
appreciate, council, I understand. So I think there's a couple of things which have happened, which haven't got into the outcome tracking yet, so again, apologise for that being the case. We're working on that. Specifically in terms of the two items, planning colleagues are working with, their servants in the Kirkstead area, to take forward. So there's a discussion ongoing about the energy investment plan piece, and particularly in terms of budget, it's a workshop planning and resilient adaptation team are going to be organising. They're also involved in contracting some government agencies around discussion about the matter. I think in the interim there is advice from historic planning authority reviews various buildings and other plans and application. There is unbiased perspective that works with believe the work within them to get beyond the generic detail of that. So once again, apologise, we need to get the outcome tracker updated. And we'll have
How do you feel would be for November?
Let's work to get that as soon as possible. I'm certainly thinking of a plan update, which has to be very mentioned.
All right, thanks. David.
I've got a couple of other items. Could I just on that though, ask, could they go on our forward plan? But I just thought that should have happened as a matter of course, to be honest. Unless for some reason we should have taken reports in the future. And it's been requested several times now. So can we at least also get them onto our forward plan? I also mentioned, I think it would be helpful that the energy plan, if the recommendations were actually put or referred to a bit more than they are at the moment, a little bit buried the way they're expressed at the moment, and I think it's being lost just how much we're missing by not having taken what we requested in right forward yet. Okay, that's that one. So a couple of others, if I may.
Yeah.
CDS and the airband contract in particular. Now we've got that's also something that was brought up in July, but it actually refers to a situation in the west area of Somerset. The airband contract was failing last year, and it was apparent and known it was failing last year. They were delaying their rollout timetable. By the end of the year, it was clear that they were failing to deliver. By February, they admitted they were not going to deliver and even put it in their published accounts on Companies House. And again, we're just waiting a long time to hear back. So this situation has been going on for over a year now. And meanwhile, in the West area, we've got a contract awarded to Airbound by Connecting Devon and Somerset, which is not being delivered. It's not happening. And we're again being told next to nothing apart from reports will follow. And I know the council's got a lot on, and I am mindful of that. But the business as usual should be continuing, and we're again not hearing back. What is happening with Airband in the west of the county? I suspect there could be problems in other areas as well. We've asked for reports, and I have to say the reports we've been given have been minimal. What we really want to know is what's happening with the rollout that's been delayed for so long. Sorry, Paul, everyone else is looking at you, so I'm doing the same. But I think we need to know, we need a report back, it needs to have some substance to it. Thank you.
It's a fair point, Dave. I'll come back to Paul on. Would you like to?
Very happy to respond on that point as well. And the man service correction to refer to the commercial difficulties that Airbound as a company has. It's taken over by it's getting refinanced as well. Somerset Council is part of the Protected Development Somerset Partnership. We work with Derby Council in that partnership, also government agency in the UK. We are in ongoing commercial negotiations with Airband about the information for the on rollout. That those are ongoing negotiations. We don't have a clear picture to bring yet, and it would be potentially difficult in the context of negotiations if we were to bring something halfway through. We hope use that word certainty. We hope to be in a position where those negotiations with Parliament I think we need to bring something back where we have a clear picture in which we can share and discuss in this meeting.
Okay, I'll come back to Dave Mansell, who might want to respond, or move on to his next question.
That's fine. I will look forward to something in October, but can I ask you, maybe give something confidential? Please give us something of substance, show that it's being dealt with, which at the moment, I'm not saying you're not, but you're not letting us know that something is going on.
I think Councillor said pointed out bringing something precise. We need to do those negotiations. So we have something being distributed rather than
Right. So the answer being we would wish to bring something of substance. Okay. And David.
Oh, sorry, I did actually have one. I thought I was going to do the second next. Sorry. Yes, one's much easier. We've got a report. I'm actually now looking at with Dan. We're on that as well. We've got an item on fleet progress. I think mainly in connection with savings, but it's about what's happening with fleet rollout on new vehicles. Could I ask, will that also, or could it also include progress with decarbonising the things as well?
Mickey.
Yeah, well, it's kind of. Something Council.
Councillor Carswell.
Thank you, Chair. I only wanted to comment what Councillor Mansell said because I have sat in CDS meetings. I don't know if you're aware in the east of the augmented area there is no provider now because the failure of the first provider and the second provider are choosing to come into an agreement with the council that they will progress. I think perhaps with the exception of one provider, they are all behind level milestones. And the problem is, as you found in the east, there is no alternative provider. So I think the council is on a, though they'll go into negotiations with providers, there's unlikely anybody else will step up and do it in their place.
Yeah, thank you for that point. Well, I think it's a point rather than a question, so I will come back to Councillor Mansell.
We're in our area in the amazing position where we've got an alternative provider. And in the interim between the failure of the last contract with Gigaclear in our area, and there was a hiatus for a couple of years between, we had a company called Technological, a local company, who started rolling out and did a great job. And people love their service. But because the contract was awarded to Airband, they got stuck. They got frozen and couldn't expand anymore. So actually in our area, there is an alternative provider with a track record of success. And in fact, the Airband contract is a blockage to them being able to progress further. So a little bit of information, which may be helpful.
Councillor Hobhouse.
Mickey and the other officers, at the moment, we have 9 subjects going on the agenda for the 11th of November. That means that we'll be here until about 10 o'clock at night, if it stays like it is. How are you going to get through all these? Are you going to try and call an October meeting to split it in half? Or are we going to have, the 23rd of December is, in my opinion, a really, for want of a better word, silly date. But we are going to have to split November into 2.
I think we're looking at, just on that last point, we're looking at moving the 23rd of December. When achieved that yet, have we?
We will be providing some options for you
Yeah.
imminently, Chair.
But it won't be here. It won't be in Taunton. It won't be in Porlock either, I don't think, but so some of you may have to drive a bit further east or catch the train or bike in Edgeworth. On the other matter, yeah, it's a good point. We are building up a lot of the agenda issues. I think you're going to have to leave us and Jamie and the officers to review that. And if we do have reports, they should be mainly in writing and open for discussion, of course, but brief to the point. And I think a lot of the points I mentioned probably would be satisfied with a fairly brief update if there's only been moderate progress. Yeah,
Well,
okay,
absolutely.
okay.
I just wanted to make the point.
Do we have any more comments or questions on this tracker? No, okay. In which case, I'll move on, but see the report. Are we on 6? We're on 6, aren't we? Yeah, okay. Agenda item 6. I've told what I did do with this. Okay. Oh, hang on a minute. What are we doing on agenda item 6?
Well, this is where Mr. Orr has asked to do his.
Okay, I've got equality due regard. Yeah. No wonder I'm confused. I'm sorry, I'm on last month's agenda. Right. No, it wasn't yours. It wasn't yours. It was, it's me working off that. Thank you, Marcus. Right, David Orr, your question, please.
Before I start, I'd just like to wish Mickey all the best. My wife and I are keen recyclers, and Mickey and his colleagues did a great job in Somerset Waste Partnership. We'd like to think we're about 80%. There we go. Okay. Have we asked too much of our planning officers on nutrient neutrality? They have to be biologists, chemists, environmental scientists, hydrologists, and water engineering experts all rolled into one. National England disclosed an email where they and Dorset Council were planning how to word a letter to the Environment Agency Secretary of State, who left off all further phosphorus mitigation. They speak of skeletons in the cupboard, and I quote, "The point here is that using National England's advised long-term nitrogen target, there is much more flexibility around the phosphorus target and uncertainty around whether sewage treatment works alone achieve the required phosphorus reduction for the harbour. To avoid phosphorus nutrient neutrality is pretty well avoided. We need to avoid protracted discussion with environment seeking to agree reductions to be achieved by the sewage treatment works to avoid phosphorus neutrality. Both nutrients in Poole Harbour is an absolutely bad result. You may never know how close this was, exclamation mark. From the Environment Agency, this is the only nutrient neutrality catchment where this is being considered. Dorset Council has been allowed to count 6 small wastewater treatment works, saving only 1.5 tonnes of phosphorus a year, even though they know that the agricultural peak exceeds that. The 6 small wastewater treatment works in Dorset are for a population equivalent of 1,000 to 2,000 and won't be completed in 2031. Somerset is 2,000 or more. Dorset Council's for extra wastewater treatment works investments of 30 million by Wessex Water, lifted all phosphorus restrictions down by not counting fully the known agricultural phosphorus loads, and making the 1.5 tonnes only of annual phosphorus removal from the 6 very small wastewater treatment works count as certainly set in the reserve. Somerset Council has not persuaded Wessex Water to invest in small village wastewater treatment works, that's the 1,000 to 2,000 population. It's insisting that all agricultural legacy and current phosphorus is fully counted, and is making everyone wait until 2030 before fully counting Wessex Water improvements. Ironically, the National England officer who is keeping Somerset to the rules for the follow-on is a trustee and director of the Dorset Wildlife Trust, where not a peep was heard when all phosphorus mitigation was lifted for Dorset this summer. There's so much for the threat of legal action there. In my view, Somerset water bill payers will be, in a small way, subsidising Dorset water bill payers Well, we have helped Dorset by naming to get a real economic and social and affordable housing advantage over us. And in a tale of two villages, they both want to build affordable housing, they want to keep young people in the village, they want to make the local primary school viable. The village in Dorset can do that now without impediments, delays or extra costs. They control where development occurs as they now have a 5-year housing land supply. The villages in Somerset has planning delays, upfront costs, complex phosphorus mitigation, bureaucratic requirements, and currently at 5-head, an extra 22,000 for home mitigation costs. Control of where development goes is in the hands of speculative developers as there is no 5-year housing land supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. I think we've moved.
Nicky wants to.
Oh, sorry, I have the right to reply. I'm giving Nicky Green.
So thank you, and thanks, Mr. Orr, for your question. I'd be grateful for if you could just share a copy of that question, because it's slightly different to the one submitted. Just
Yes,
so I can provide it.
My dash down was too long, so I had to fiddle with it.
No, that's fine, that's fine. And I'll provide you with a written response, but just to summarise, all the points Mr. Orr has raised have been comprehensively responded to by Natural England as the staff body responsible for nature conservation. In a response to Mr. Orr, which you shared with the council back in August. And so I refer Mr. Orr back to that information and remind colleagues, members, that Dorset is still dealing with nutrient neutrality requirements in the Poole Harbour catchment for nitrogen offset schemes and has been awarded funding in the same way Somerset has to unlock developments. Mr. Orr is aware that the council is seeking costings and indicative timescales from Natural England to undertake a similar piece of work at Somerset levels and moors. And we've allocated a small amount of funding to support that work. And when it comes to water bills, is clearly set regionally by Ofwat and cover the programme of investment across the whole area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, Kirsty Larkins is going to present a draft. Are you Kirsty?
I am. Well, I'm not going to present a draft, so we've had a discussion with Councillor Hogbath and Councillor Dibry to define the scope of the target finished group. We're in the process of drafting the terms of reference. Once you have that, obviously sign up from yourself as chair and as Henry will then circulate to the wider committee. We can do that outside of the normal run the committee meetings and have it signed off and approved. And I know we've already got a list of members. So we'll then be able to arrange a meeting and start that work. But it will be focusing on the restoration of the walls and levels, just sort of transparency.
Right, thank you. I'm going to ask if anybody has any question relating to that statement. No, in which case, Henry is now going to give us a verbal update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We need volunteers for this task and finish group. It is going to be quite technical. One of the first people we are going to need to talk to is Dr. Andrew Clegg, who on West Sedgemoor and Fastmoor thinks that and can prove that both moors are exporting phosphates as opposed to importing them from the river catchment. That makes a fundamental difference to what is happening. Now, Wessex Water have employed a scientist whose sole job it is to look at the movement of the phosphates onto and off of the different Ramsar sites. His name is Ty Coulter. He was working for Plymouth. He's now working for Wessex Water. The trouble is that we have got no information on the other 5 moors because nobody's done any science. The second person we're going to have to talk to at length is Mark Taylor of Natural England, who has been working and directing the Somerset River Catchment Plan. Both myself and Andrew Clegg sit on the scientific side of that plan. The problem we have is we don't know how much of the catchment pollution gets onto the moors, if any. So I'm looking for volunteers. You're going to have some sort of scientific fight and understanding because this is complicated And let me just give you one of the major complications. For those of you who remember your A-level chemistry, what is ferric? It's iron, metal iron with 3 plus attachments. Does anybody remember what ferrous was? Well, I've talked to you about this, David, in the past. That's 2. Now, where you get a loss of oxygen in the reens, the ferric turns to ferrous, and you end up with what is called a phosphate ion, a radical phosphate ion that's attached to nothing, and that will make the pollution worse. Immediately the pollution's worse, the oxygen drops again, and you again get this cycle taking place. All of the iron phosphate is already in the mud from the historical pollution that was on the levels. And we have got a major problem on how we can work out ideas to return the levels to what they were 20 years ago.
Right, thank you. Look, the one thing that I'm a bit concerned about is your request that people have A-level chemistry.
Never said that. I said they had to have some sort of scientific understanding.
Right, yeah, well, that rules me out for a start. Councillor Cravis may be able to. Exactly. Did you want to elucidate on that? Oh, you were just making a point. But yes, to reiterate, it would be useful to have. I think even if you're playing catch up a bit with the science, it would be very useful to have some volunteers come forward, because this is a debate we've been having for a very long time, and we think that the Task and Finish group will be able to perhaps consolidate some ideas and put some ideas forward for consideration. Now, I don't really want to kind of have an enforcement naming and shaming session.
I'll ask something. I'm really hesitant to put my hand up, because I think, well, that's very risky. In terms of what's just been asked. But the thing that I'm wondering that seems to have been missed is, and I'm a bit surprised that there's this request for membership, because there were 7 members identified at the last meeting.
Yes.
So surely there is a membership.
I must admit, I agree with you on that one.
Have you have a list of names?
Yeah, it's in the minutes.
You've got them here. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
Then
okay.
we need to meet.
So, I can leave who's got the list? You have, Kirsty.
It is in the minutes, we have.
It's in the minutes, right, okay. Well,
I would just say that's quite a large number of members for a Task and Finish
Yeah.
group. So what I would probably ask members to do is to check whether their names are on that list, and if they are, if they're not convinced that they would wish to continue, then perhaps let us know that you wish to withdraw. Otherwise, we will make contact with those members who are on the list.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, Kirsty.
Sorry, Kirsty.
That it would be helpful to have a scientific background, and I'm sure that would be the case, but it will be our job as officers to try and make sure it's in layperson's language, so it doesn't stop people being involved. So I think that's really important. So, Henry is obviously knows a huge amount of detail and has got that background, but don't let that completely put you off, because we will try and step you through that. So I appreciate it is complicated, it is important, so we'll try and make sure as officers we step you through that process.
You're so diplomatic, Kirsty. Can I suggest that we get this meeting sorted out by the end of this week? Would that be asking too much? Because these names have been sitting there, we've been waiting to do something. And it just may require a round robin email or a doodle or whatever you do to agree it. But I think it would be good if that committee could sit before our next meeting, so it can report back.
We need to sit in October, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. What do you mean this committee needs to sit?
No.
You need to sit, exactly, yeah.
Task and Finish
You
group.
did mention that earlier, yeah, okay.
Chair.
Yes, okay, sorry, Habib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Habib Farmahai from the member of Cultural and as well.
Habib, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I thought I saw you reach to put your microphone on, and you obviously did. Sorry.
I
I just need a point of clarification because this all started on the 17th of August 2020. And it was sat on officers' desk for about a month before everybody else knew about it. Now, I'm curious what has happened, for those planning permission that has been, that has been given the, big tick within that period. Has anybody looked at that?
Yes, there's been a lot of discussion in that period of time, but I'll let Mickey answer.
Yeah, the place I'd probably recommend you look for the best update is the papers for the Transport and Policy Subcommittee, and there've been numerous member briefings and workshops. You can find it's too big a question to answer now, but a hell of a lot has happened and is happening.
So, I've always been curious about this. So Natural England and environmental agencies, they didn't have any issues for that month. That's the question, that, planning permission has been permitted and those units have been built. And normally issues have been raised for that period that, we were supposed to look at the phosphate application and everything else. So had that office or office sat on it for 6 months, nobody would have noticed.
But I think this is a question about what happened in 2020 under district councils. I have no clue what the answer is, but I'm happy to look back.
Yeah, I think if I may, some of these questions might be better answered out of the forum because there has been a huge debate on this issue, and it has gone back and forward, and it's quite contentious. And to actually get the fuller picture, it's quite difficult for me to recall it now. The number of we've had special meetings, we've had a lot of engagement over this particular issue, and that's why we formed the Task and Finish group to try and draw some of these threads together. And so that's what we're proceeding with now. But you're quite right, it's been a very long, protracted debate without, well, there are conclusions, but they are being perhaps challenged. Sorry, can I leave you with that? Maybe I do beg your pardon for not being able to be more precise. Alan Bradford, Councillor Bradford.
Secondly, is there any maps flying around to identify the different moors? Because every moor has its, and people around this committee people have its strength on its own areas. If you know your own area and you become strong on that area regarding these phosphate levels, etc. You've got to be familiar with what you're talking about, because knowledge of it. Because you've got a man you're speaking, what, 4 or 5 months Andrew Clay. And I thought he was saying that had an awful lot of sense, but it seemed to fall on deaf ears. And now I understand now that Natural England, Deptford, and all the rest are having their budget switches. A number of these guys flying around helping us aren't going to be.
I think, Alan, the answer to your question, I mean to say, okay, yes. Kirsty, would you like to?
Yes, our maps available, they're all on, you literally put them in conflict, Somerset Council, it brings up a page with all the information of different things that have happened, but all the different maps. I'm sure we can send out the link afterwards to committee members, but there's a huge amount of up-to-date information, including maps of the different catchment areas and the overall. So hopefully that should be useful.
Thank you very much. I admire all the work Henry's doing on this. He must be going barking mad. The frustration, the length of time it takes to do this. Because if you were running your own business and it took so long to make decisions on this, I don't know what would happen.
Well, I think to be fair, it's a contentious subject. Therefore, the decisions or the policies that emerge from it are not going to be particularly straightforward. And I wish we could progress it faster than we are. But I appreciate actually officers are doing a great deal to come to terms with our demands as a committee on this. So I think Marcus Kravis would like.
Thank you, Chair. No microphones at with me, I do mumble. I think the whole life day, I think that few lessons to be learned going forward. Looking back, but we don't really want to be looking back because we want to dig in the issue and get it dealt with. And bottom line is, the buck stops with whoever was politically in charge. However we want to dress it up. The bottom line is the portfolio holders and council members. So that's okay. I think the issue that we've got is that we've got to start building again, we've got to solve the problem. Because it's not just the private development, because they're being affordable, and you look at every member of this council and not being able to build affordable housing, it's costing us money, it's costing us money in housing benefit, it's costing us money in children's services, it's probably costing, well, it's costing money all over the place. So I think this task and finish bridge does need to meet, and we need to just move forward and solve the problem. And then once we solve the problem, you can maybe look at the past and see what went on.
I think so, and rather than protracting the debate on this issue, because it's something that's comes up week in week, one meeting after another, I think we need to refer back to this the task and finish group, and for that forum to form some conclusions that can go back to the office and go back to the executive, and firstly to this body. Any other points on that issue? Right, thank you all for that. Let's move on. Agenda item 7. Can I just say, sorry, I was going to say this earlier, relating to the last matter. We're also dealing, everybody's also dealing with a fluid, and I don't mean that as a joke, pun, a fluid situation with this. There's actually changing detail and changing information coming in all the time. So I think we're all having to update where we are on the water quality issue, because I'm certainly receiving new facts, new statistics almost month by month. So moving on to agenda item.
Currently important. You claim a lot of the small farmers have suffered because of the intensity of some of the bigger gardens, farming within Somerset. Some of these people have been affected quite psychologically by some of the visits they've had from DA and what have you, especially they did new water courses and what have you.
Okay, could you feed that into the task and finish
And
group?
they're affecting the whole livelihood.
Yeah.
They've got things like this, really, a great shame. They've been very heavy-handed.
All right, okay, thank you. Climate place performance monitoring. I've got Lisa. Yes, you're doing that one. Mickey Green is the lucky man that's doing this for us.
So, thanks, Chair. I describe it as a bridging report. I guess the appendix is where all the meat of it is. So it's got, what we didn't want to do was get too far ahead of where corporate performance reporting is. So what we've tried to do is kind of do a bridging report, which shows you all the indicators that we currently report for this directorate. We've structured them underneath the 4 county plan priority areas. And we've also tried to give you an indication of where we intend to make the indicators richer. So welcome, obviously, questions. 2 of the service directors are here in the room, one's online. So welcome questions on our current performance and indeed on how we intend to kind of change our indicators to make sure that we are monitoring what matters. I'd also point you to section 5 of that report, which is where we include the revenue budget monitoring report. I think we've always been of the view that it's important that the finance and the performance information comes together. So this will change in format. I'm not going to try and go through it. Those of you who've read it will know there's a lot in there. But just welcome questions, Chair.
We'll have a chance to see the report. Does anybody have any questions? Dave, don't look so askance, you know. It doesn't matter if you take the floor.
Well,
We're very pleased that you've read it.
I was quite happy if someone else went before me, but I have got a few. I've got one through them all, and there are mostly questions, maybe a couple of comments. First a suggestion, I think. We've got indicators being compared at the moment, and so this is a suggestion when we get the next version. At the moment, we've got the latest quarter, and it's compared with the quarter before. In a number of cases, the seasonal effects which go on. So we end up comparing different seasons when you would expect, in some of the cases, some variation anyway. It'd be helpful if that could be addressed. So I don't think that's necessarily a helpful comparison. I mean, it may vary by the indicator, but sometimes it may be helpful to actually compare to the previous year's equivalent quarter. Anyway, I think Mickey nodded and I think I made the point on that, so thank you. I will quickly say, looking at waste as I always do, pretty good, and much of the country would be delighted with that. But Somerset expects to be right at the top, really, and perhaps our performance might just have hoped for a little bit better, including on the mists, although with the mists, I understand we've had all the round changes. So I trust all the red there will start to disappear as that fully beds in. Page 45, a question on the BSIP funding for the buses that we've got. And I was just a little bit concerned by what is said here about funding deadlines. And I'm not quite sure whether I'm reading in between the lines correctly. There seemed to be a little bit of doubt whether we were going to get the work done, and there's a lot of work to be done. So there's the green waves, which are bus priority lanes, primarily in Taunton, and there's the mobility hubs in Taunton and Somerton. Can I ask for how those are getting on, and are they going to be delivered in time to ensure that we receive the funding by the deadline? Okay, so moving.
Is this on a separate issue, Dave?
It's on a separate issue. You want to take a break?
Let's take an answer on that, please.
I'm hoping Mike can hear online and he'll be able to give a more detailed answer than I can. I'm not sure what I'm speaking to.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hello, Mike.
Hi.
You came in with an orchestra then. Like a fanfare at your arrival. We got strange things happening in the room, but do attempt to enlighten us, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mansell. Yes, I think it's going to be challenging to spend the funding on the full range of BSIP measures, particularly the transport hubs, which have been fairly complex issues to move forward. Challenging to spend the funding within the original deadline, which was the end of this financial year. We have had agreement to extend the window of that funding. I think a lot of other authorities are in a similar situation, so there is a kind of national agreement to enable that to continue. So we're comfortable that we'll be spending the money within the new timescales, and that there is no risk at the moment of that being withdrawn.
Thank you very much. It's good to know that we are reaching the wider world. Thank you.
All right.
David.
Okay, thank you. And on the whole, that's good to hear. Obviously, good to see them in place as soon as they can be as well. And maybe not for now. It would be good to hear what those new timetables are. I don't know. Guessing perhaps the year after, but let's have that reported back to us in due course. Thank you. A suggestion on the broadband targets, which at the moment are fairly minimal in terms of just all we've got here is how many households are covered by either superfast or ultra fast, and it makes it sound wonderful. I have to say, in my patch, it's not so wonderful. We've got an awful lot of households who still have wires-only connections. So I hope when that comes to the next version of this, it would be good to have breakdowns of areas. We've already heard of some different things going on. East and west in particular sound like we're suffering with our rural rollouts. And I think there should also be a distinction between the super fast and the ultra fast, and then the rollouts range of the ultra fast. So that's a request for future. And I think it'd be helpful to know what I believe the numbers are known and how many should be rolled out to, at least under the former contracts. So it'd be good to know how we're performing against that, which, as I say, in my area is not looking very good. That's that one. I feel we should ask, in the context of savings, and I'm now looking at page 55, particularly on waste and the recycling centre contracts. And we had messages from our Chief Financial Officer it was really important that the savings were delivered this year, and that must be done. And I have sort of been wondering, what has been going on with the recycling centre saving, because we've not heard anything on that since it was taken. And there's now an indication here that currently it's not known if the full save will be achieved. I think it's important that the council knows what's going on, not least the messages we've had from the chief financial officer saying it's absolutely crucial that these savings are achieved. Not that I'm keen to achieve them, but we don't want the council going bankrupt either. So I feel we should be told a little bit more what's happening.
Can I stop you at that point, because Kirsty can answer that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We are still working on it. I think it's fair to say that our work is still kind of taking precedent, obviously. We'll be a situation there that's now resolved, and we've still been working behind the scenes with our contractor. We had some initial legal advice that kind of set us in one direction. It's turned into something more complicated than originally thought for, as often do contract negotiations. We're just waiting for some fresh advice and some new information that's been kind of presented to us. Once we've got that, we'll have a better indication of the ability to make those savings and the kind of time frame around public consultation. Obviously, we agreed that we would come back and there would be sort of a full public consultation exercise as well around any closures. So it is under threat because it was a plan for a full year saving. We're not in that position. It's just a lot more complicated than originally thought for, just from a commercial contract negotiation point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsty.
Okay, we will wait to see how that develops, and we will wait to see whether our new finance
Very
officer
good question, Dave.
has any comments on how all the savings are progressing, including that one. Okay, thank you for that. And actually, last quick point, because I've made it already. Page 56 did look at broadband. Might have been an opportunity to update us, because it didn't really take us any further, but hopefully further performance reports will give us a bit more substance, but I'll cover that in a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Habib, sorry, Habib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a number of questions, if you don't mind. On page 35, why is it that the most costly transport for school and SEND is not available? You don't know whether it's going up or it's coming down. That is quite worrying. The other thing is, I would like to see another column with costs attached to it, because in the context of saving, it's really it's helpful for the committee members to see what the cost was in previous quarters as compared to the next quarter. So that's number one. On page 4,
Do you mind if I interrupt you? Let's take that one point at a time. Let's. I'll come back to you. Is anybody able to take that?
Mike online.
Mike online. Did you hear that question?
I did. Thank you. Yes. So we have got an awful lot of data on this matter, both in terms of the numbers transported and the savings progress. So I'm very happy to give a sort of a written update, perhaps with the latest facts and figures on those issues, just to give some reassurance that there's been a school transport board that's convened that is really driving down the costs in that area, and we've got some good outcomes to share on that. So I can send a paper around. In terms of the numbers from the previous quarter, I'm not entirely sure why they're not in the paper, but they are kind of demand-led numbers in a way. They are the number of students who required that transport. So it would probably vary quite reasonably by demand, just in terms of going up and down. So that won't necessarily tell you any particular trend in terms of cost reduction. But we've certainly got the information on cost reduction, so I'll forward that through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Habib, can I come back to you?
I'm sure. I've got a number of other questions as well. On the surface dressing, page 46, I believe, with the new contract, what is the acceptable time to put the road markings? Because in my own patch, we've had the same contractor putting the dressing line, surface dressing line, and we've been waiting for over 3 weeks, and people haven't come back to put the markings, and people are concerned, my residents are concerned. So, if I may.
Yeah. Mike, did you catch that one?
I did. So the surface dressing this year, we're trying a new treatment which has 2 stages to it, designed to have much more longevity and with the overall aim of reducing the long-term cost and the carbon emissions from that activity. So the first treatment has gone down. The second hasn't in quite a number of areas because of the weather. It needs to be dry when we do it. So it's been raining for the last few weeks, well, the last couple of weeks on and off. So we're waiting for a spell to finish it off essentially. So that's the reason for the delay, but apologies for that. It's a technical reason, because if we put it down when it's wet, it won't stay in place. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the acceptable time? I mean,
You're being asked what is the acceptable time? Right.
It is purely weather dependent. So I think we've got signage up that says we would aim to be back within 2 weeks. I think it says on the signs of putting the initial treatments in, but that's not been possible because of the weather.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that. My other question is on page 49. What is the impact on the delay with building control on the council reputation?
What was the last bit? Sorry, Habib. On the
what is the impact of the delay with building control?
Building control, yeah.
On the reputation of the council, because if we want to be wealth creators, we want to generate more income for the council. It's important that our services are up to scratch.
Right. Who's going to handle that? Paul.
Not quite sure the detail behind the question.
Well, the details is actually on page 51. You can actually look at the details. The combined value for our income has almost halved. And that's the details. Basically, our income is actually reduced. Yeah. So, what is the reason behind that?
I think that's needs to be looked at over a long year period. I think talks a little bit to customize things around looking at indicators over a longer period of time. The building control income is quite variable towards also. It's also quite big at the economic side as well. So, and independently, the flow through of all the services work. Generally speaking, and looking at financial monitoring of service in year, the building control is on target to deliver its income for the year. We're monitoring that closely, obviously, we will do. But last year, the target, the indicators are this year are on track as well. So, what you're forced for variations.
Okay. I might have a little bit interest in this, but in the past, I've used council's services as well as private services, and there's no comparison with that.
There's no comparison in regard to one being better than the other.
Exactly.
Right.
So please have a look.
Okay. I'm sorry, Alan, I've got you down. Henry's very kindly written a list for me, and he's next.
Sorry, Alan, you'll come in a minute.
I'll be going too long.
And then it's Marcus. It's Marcus and then yourself.
Page 42, rights of way. It is my other nerd subject, guys. We have a situation where we have been accepting for determination incorrectly filled in applications. That was corrected by Paul, can't think of his surname, at the beginning of our administration, but we have an historical problem going back till 1992, I think is the earliest one. It is entirely due to the Bridleway Society of Somerset, who, in my opinion, failed to remember that prior to 1900, where there were no cars, there were no bridleways, because the highways were used as the bridleways. And we have a major problem with the acceptance, and legally you have to have new information to put in an application. And we have been accepting applications without new information now for a very long time.
Does anybody want to respond to that? Well, it was a statement, I agree.
I'm willing to put a question in afterwards.
You can if you wish.
I have asked for the governance committee to change the governance of the right of way. How are we getting on with that?
It seems like we're not. So I'm just wondering, Henry, if that's something you could take up outside of this meeting?
I'm already taking.
All right, okay. I've got next time, sorry, Alan, I've got Marcus next.
You're wrong here, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, mine's more, when it comes back to gas by itself and its savings, and I'm looking, two things, I do still think of the framework of these things. And we talk about savings, and we talk about, you know, it's easy if you can have KPIs if you do it with a specific service like, you know, savings like incentives, you don't make the savings because you can see what's happened and what's the results of that. But it comes back to, and I'm looking at the economic development, and looking at savings we're making there. And how do we then judge the effect of those savings going forward? Because a lot of that may or may not happen, maybe something that we'd like to happen, but we don't know. And maybe, as I said, there might be outcomes that would be hoping to achieve, but then how do we sort of go to that? It gets back to, I suppose, I was talking about earlier about, you know, saving costs effective accounts that actually affects people's lives. And how do we talk about protecting debt with Somerset? Well, if you're not in the middle class, you can make the target for 75 going on. It's again vulnerable for people who haven't got those deep pockets that get affected the most. And it's like getting back to those people that need to get the cost of council. If you can't afford to live in this way, then that's a pressure on us. But how do we, the economic development, how do we judge that? And what KPIs can we put in place to say, well, actually, the savings we made haven't affected us as much as we would like. So I'm trying to get my head around it, and I can't. But I maybe need some.
Paul, if you'd like to.
Now she might be the word or atmosphere, aren't we? Because the whole set that very badly she wants to be erasing that Marcus. I think just taking a step back from economic development indicates that's the development forward. What we try to do, it might not be perfect, probably never will do, is combine some indicators that are strategic to give an overview and some economic performance, where the council then implemented one day, so you can't control the outcome then, at best you can be part of the state. And then operational indicators, which are about council politically, one very interesting thing that often less strategic in their overall impact. I'm kind of creating more work for this, but I think if we're going to tackle the point and raise probably as much about the narrative that goes with the kind of indicators, 45 awards from the 45 awards that kind of picks up the specifics around the impact of savings made and other factors as well, so that you get the story about what's going on, which reflects on the picture of. But that's probably not the best way of doing it.
Are you okay? Yeah. You can, okay, thank you. Yeah, good point. Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's your mic, actually. You seem to get all the all difficult jobs. If I wanted Lynn, thank you for input on that one. Thank you very much. Secondly, regarding, follow my colleague here, question regarding the service and that which have been going on. A38, Thurlops in North Hillen area. I had a bit of running with the contractors. They decided to shovel the roads up, et cetera, without any warning, side lanes, et cetera. I was always straw of contractors at the time. Being what I am, I went along and took all the barriers down so they could get on with their work. These guys approached me. Nice guys. I don't know, so-and-so, few words of exchange. I don't want to repeat those, right? And yeah, I took a picture, I'm going to report you to the council, he said. I said, I'll remind you I am a councillor, but there's no warning what you've done. So first of all, you're in the wrong, right? What you do, go back to your work and shut up. Didn't want to do that. I won't say what happened afterwards, right? Took one of that's action. And he'd gone with the work, I got all of mine, everything's okay, right? But secondly, regarding the road surfacing, and we've got a fish farm close by, and when they done the initial surfacing, et cetera, all the lime runoff from the stuff was actually tremendous for 3 or 4 days. But the 4th day, the health people from the county came and put sandbags alongside the road to stop the runoff going down into the pond that supplied the fish ponds, because that chap had terrific worries and hassle, and I think the council could hear more about it as time goes on. But time has moved on, things have washed down now, and that's from the end of that. And thirdly, I think it is, A38, dangerous bits of road, Thurlops, and you know where it's to, you probably all know where it's to. The white lining, it's been a month now since that servicing was done, no white lining at all. And believe you me, that is a dangerous stretch of road. I had a stranger driving me Thursday night for obvious reasons. She didn't know the road so well, right? And it was quite intimidating. When anybody comes along on that road, and I accept there's a lot of change going on with contractors and changes going on within finance and all the rest of it. But really, it's a bit unacceptable when everything's hot. And I know when dry weather reduces these things, but the A38 should be really prioritised over a lot of other things.
We're getting into some specifics here, which I'm not sure we can take in this meeting. But it's a general point. But I think Mike has answered some of those points. But obviously, you would wish to follow that up directly with him. I think.
At the end of this week, I've got 2 progress on the A38.
Okay.
One will take some reports, and the other one I think will take the course.
Thank you.
They're very, very delicate subjects. And
Be
aware of all these things.
Edric.
It's just coming back up with the added about the white lining on each status service on the right side. I think this is probably between Wells and Costco. And as you'll realise, 361 in the patch, New York patch, where we had a couple of fatalities very recently. Probably a white lines going back through the surfacing property. The new white lines need to go down as a matter of urgency at all these main roads, I think. And I think we need to look at the situation, probably county-wide whilst we're undergoing this surfacing. Thank you.
Yes, okay, several statements there, and taken at face value, so I won't ask for a reply on them. I've got Benty, please.
That is just that I have been told from highways that when it comes to Shepton Valley at very big holes, etc., we will go on the 25 to 26 budget. So I hope that starts the 1st of January. In the meantime, we come to terms with our steering wheels are actually being hit out of our hands, and we are going everywhere. And we have seen that outside Basel West and outside the Morrisons, where there were really good road service, they have now covered it all in shingles, and it has been so wonderful. But I've been told by people much wiser than me that they are putting shingles on to protect the underlying road surface. That is fine against any water that might sink down and might just cause the whole thing to expand and create. Because in the meantime, when you go to Shepton Mallet or you go to Boston, it is very dangerous. Paul Street and then the bend before you come into Boston. Drive with great care.
Here.
Yeah, okay, I think we're getting it, but we're all guilty of getting into what's going wrong in my patch on roads, and we've really got to follow that up directly rather than in school. But
That's why I say 25 to 26.
right,
Tax year.
I would think it'd probably be April, but anyway. So I'm moving that way. I forgot where I am now.
You're at the end.
I'm at the end.
Number
I'm going. I want to go on to item 8, unless anybody's got any more questions. No, okay. Now I understand that on agenda item 8, climate vision, that Kirsty is going to present this. Are you okay to present this? Do you need to? Do we need?
Might be overegging what I'm going to do, but I'm happy to do a short introduction to the item.
I'm not sorry. How long do you think this report will be?
I'll take 2 minutes to do it.
Oh, okay, stay there. No, I'm simply thinking that you might sit in the middle, but we can hear you quite. Okay, yeah, okay. Right.
So yes, unfortunately, James, who's the head of service, isn't here today. We've got myself and Mark Fortune, there's too many Marks in our service. Mark Fortune, who's like our technical expert and guru within the service. So anything's more of a technical nature, I'm sure Mark will pick up and we'll try and answer should there be anything. So the purpose of the report was to bring the committee an update vision tackling the climate and ecological emergency. I do need to say thank you to members of this committee because there has been input from members into the documents and that's been very much appreciated. It's important to highlight that many of the changes that are needed to really make those big differences require changes in policy and legislation and the associated funding from central government. It becomes very difficult to make the sort of wide-scale changes we'd like to make without that backing. The action plans associated with the vision, they are in draft format, and I know since they've been published, several of us have noticed some typos for a couple of them have been sort of duplicated. So any feedback on that's helpful before it goes forward for formal approval. It's worth mentioning that very much our vision around this work is about embedding it across the council, but also working much more closely with partners. From the sort of nature recovery, we've got a very, very good local nature partnership group that covers many partners across Somerset, and that's a really important group. So the plan is to set up something similar to work on the net zero and the sort of what I call the built environment. Mark probably tell me off calling it that, but with our vision is about setting up a similar partnership because this has to be everybody in, not just the council trying to do things on its own. We can only achieve it if our communities are brought into it and start making those changes. If that covers it, happy to take any questions. As I say, it's not meant to take over from the strategy. This is a sort of high level vision document, a call to arms. If communities go onto our website, they can see, they can look at a high level of what we've done so far and what our plans are as we move forward.
Thank you, Kirsty. Right, any questions? Henry?
Thank you, Kirsty. Somebody funded the Mendip Farmers Hill, the Mendip Hill Farmers, or whichever you want to put it. It wasn't this council because it's in your partner's bit. What I'm trying to understand is why we have supported farming the Mendip Hills, which I've got no problem with, but we haven't done any funding on our Ramsar sites.
I think the funding was so just trying to find which pages that one, Henry. Let me find it.
Sorry, it's page 6 of your presentation.
I need to come back to you on that.
Absolutely no problem at all. Habib.
Oh, it wasn't before we became a unitary council, so I was to see the date, so I'll find out. I need to chat with Mendip colleague.
No problem. Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you. Habib.
Kirsty, thanks very much for that presentation. On page 9 of your presentation and page 17 of the report, it clearly refers to Somerset's peatland have been protected and restored to store carbon water. The county's waterways and coast are healthy, clean, and free from pollutions. We were discussing phosphate earlier, so this actually sort of contradicts what we were talking about earlier. I know this is vision, but actually it refers to past tense. So, you know, you need to sort of rectify this a little bit, that, you know, and then within that, do you need to sort of give time of when, by which time we will actually deliver this? Because it's quite confusing, you know. Had I read this and then we were discussing the phosphate mitigation plan, I would think that it's all sorted out. So that's one. And then the other bit is item 3.8. It is clear, to me at least, that we are suffering with the KPIs. The work stream needs to be targeted. How do we actually measure KPIs now? And is this due to the lack of in-house staff or funding or expertise? You know, can we sort of, you know, clarify? So one is on what you've actually presented to us, then the other one is actually deep into the report. If you don't mind.
Yes.
Take them one at a time.
So it is a vision document, and I can appreciate how it could come across. So we'll take that back and we'll have a think about whether that can be reworded to make it clearer. We much appreciated that. And I think the KPI is a mixture. It's quite complex, especially around kind of the carbon accountancy, taking figures from all the different authorities, all of which were doing it in slightly different ways. There isn't a kind of a national way of this is exactly how we do it, and this is the methodology. And there is also a resource issue. I can't address that in any other way. It's a very, very full team covering a very wide breadth of things. But Mark, I don't know if you want to add anything on this source of area of expertise.
Yeah, as what we're working on currently is we are looking to publish a carbon footprint for the new council. So we've been working on putting together historic information, scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Scope 1 and 2 emissions are kind of the energy we purchase, the energy we create within our organisation. Anything on that area of emission. The scope 3 emissions relates to mainly to what we purchase as an organisation. So we spend a lot of money as a council, and there's a footprint associated to that, and the services we buy and anything you interact with. So we're in the process now of we've just actually signed a contract with a company called CO2 Analysis that's going to start analysing spending information, carbon weighting for that. So that will allow us to actually get a handle on our carbon footprint as a council. That will then become, that will form part of that KPI, and we look to be net zero, and we've got a target there for 2030 as a council for that. So we'll be able to add that in. At the moment, we don't have that data, that they just started work on that. So hopefully, that will be something that can come back to the group committee in the future, once we've got data on that, we can actually present that. As an area like target, that's where we rely on national data. So there are ways to produce data for area-wide for the whole of Somerset, and that was in the original strategy, but it hasn't been updated recently. So that again will be there'll be almost 2 levels. There'll be an internal KPI for our how we're progressing against our carbon footprint, and then there'll be an area-wide the whole of Somerset, which obviously is not only influenced by us. There's a huge amount of factors going on there, including transportation, housing emissions, etc. But we could be able to report on that. But we'll have, we'll have a small amount of movements, but not a national policy within the group as well.
Okay, yeah. I think just I'd like to just add in there that there is the issue of context, and sometimes you do need to have reference back in the past tense to know where the journey is going. I think I've got Benty down, or,
No, Dave,
that was on last time. Oh, it was Dave, was it? Sorry.
Okay, thanks. And I'm still sort of thinking to some extent, and noticing what was said earlier. And I think maybe I was to mention, and some will sort of know, I've been sort of involved, sort of pretty much throughout since we started to declare climate and ecological emergencies, both of which I suppose to our districts. I've sort of been involved following this along as the strategies have emerged and working groups and so on have been held. I am sort of wondering a little bit sort of why we're doing a vision and quite what the purpose of this is and how it's fitting in and quite why we thought this was what was needed at this time. I'm not against it. I think vision is a useful thing to have a picture of what we're heading for, and so I understand that that's what this is intended to be about. So I'm okay with that, and and could even see that it could be helpful. But I do feel concerned with the document that we got. In particular, it gives a really big focus on individuals and communities, and at least to my reading of it, starts to, and I don't think it's just my reading, I think that's what it's intended to do. It's trying to say it's all down to individuals and communities to get action done. And for me, that's not right, and not possible. So it's giving a false picture. I'm absolutely for individual and community action. We do need it, and that is part of the answer, but we definitely also need our councils and our government to be shaping the way the economy works, to be having policies to support what we need. Now, Kirsty did refer to that a little bit in the introduction, and possibly felt the need to do that because I don't see it in the vision. Now, for me, that's a problem. If we do need to be realistic about what's needed, and if we start putting it all down to and making all the fault of individuals and communities to do it, there's no point. Well, there's not no point. You have to be really careful on this, but it's getting the balance right. And we can't put it all onto individuals and communities. And this is a council document, and for me, especially council and government documents should be saying how we're shaping the system. And this document doesn't do that. So that's a concern. I hope it can be improved when it comes to a final version. Some questions. We've got a climate partnership being set up. We've had the nature one, and they sound like good things. Can we be told a little bit more what this climate? When will we receive a report on what the climate partnership will be? Who will be on it? What will it involve? It's clearly quite important. And could I also suggest that I really think it's important that we start having cross-party involvement in this. In the nature partnership, the other groups, it looks to me, have been excluded. The portfolio holder goes along and knows what's happening, and just about no one else in the council knows what's happening there or can contribute into it, apart from through this committee. I feel some of the other parties, the other groups, do need to be able to have an input and to be involved. So I hope that will be considered. Could it be made clear, but it's not in the report, what's happening with this vision? Is it going to go to executive now for adoption? Also, what's happening with the strategy? We hear it's still there, but needs refreshing. And it does need refreshing, and I completely agree with that, not least in terms of targets. And I'm hearing some talk today about targets of 2030 for the council, and a vague talk about an area-wide target. Well, those have not come to the council. Officers seem to be running with those, because that's not what the strategy says. And I am one who's very much think those targets do need review, and have said it many times. So I'm up for looking at them and reviewing them, and would be quite keen to see when that will be done. So when will the strategy be refreshed? When will these action plans be done? I mean, I know we're in a difficult situation with the new council, but at one time, I had reservations, but we were making progress and good things were happening. I'm feeling that far less now. I really do feel the new council's gone backwards, and for me, this is a really important thing that we need to progress and be moving on. And and to me, it doesn't feel like that. So I hope we can start stepping it up, and it is one of our corporate priorities to get it properly recognised. And one final point. I read the paper afterwards on the economic development, and it talked about that strategy might start adopting missions. Just possibly, if we're looking to dress things up in new ways, that might be something we want to follow up with this as well. It fits in with the government now. We've got a new government, they're orientated towards missions. And yeah, it could be a good approach, which leads to ambition and starts us really thinking about what's required. Which I'm sorry to say, this mission is too superficial for me, and I'm not really sure it's going to achieve much. But it looks nice and sounds nice.
I think there's some serious points there. Kirsty's nodding at the back there, and I think she could probably bring some answers to the table.
Thank you for your comments. It's really good to have feedback and views. I think to some extent, the document is aimed at individuals and communities, and that was partly to address. We have quite a lot, so through the LCN networks, and we have parish councils and individuals coming and saying, what can we do? What's it going to look like? So that is partly intentional. I think you're right. I think we could include something around that need for policy change and legislation change. I think that's a really valid point, and we can obviously try and look to build that into it. I suspect the reports on the climate partnership, the kind of who, when, and the detail probably won't be until January next year. There's quite a lot of work going on at the moment. There's lots of work around the restructure within the council, and some of this work will be dependent on how those things kind of develop and kind of go forward. And we know that there's going to be less resources across most of our kind of services, so it does make some of these things more challenging. I think I'll take on board the cross-party involvement in the LNP, and we can feed that back and look at that. I can't make any promises, but again, I've heard the comment, and we'll take that back. So the next steps for this is it will go to executive for sort of formal adoption. I think the really important bits of the action plan sat behind the vision and kind of the next steps that we're taking. And again, that will be partly dependent on resources that we have to be able to do that. And that will hopefully be in the next couple of months. So hopefully not too long to wait for that to go through. And the strategy and when it will be refreshed is a huge piece of work around all the data. I know Mark was very heavily involved in developing the last strategy and can give you detail, but it was hugely kind of intensive piece of work. I think the strategy is very important and the data is very important, but what I don't want us to do is move away from actually delivering and being able to enable things to happen. And my worry is that if we end up focusing on a strategy, that will be the work that happens, and then the other things won't happen, so there's not going to be enough resource. I'll let Mark come in on the strategy, because he's much closer to it than I am.
I would also suggest that the climate partnership is quite crucial to the refreshment of the strategy, because the original Somerset climate strategy, although it was developed with some external partner support, it was very much a council document, and it's probably failed to deliver as much as it was supposed to because of that, because we didn't have that additional partnership support. Unlike some of the local mentioned partnership strategies and policies that are coming forward, it's a bit more collective responsibility. So it's probably a timing thing that actually the establishment of that climate partnership, the kind of decarbonisation partnership, as opposed to the natural partnership, that we would then look, once we've got partners on board, to actually work with them to refresh the strategy. It does need updating. It's still got there's a section in there about COVID because we're in the middle of COVID. And we would probably also want to have a section within that strategy about us as a council, because it addresses Somerset as a whole. It doesn't talk about Somerset Council, because obviously that's number 5 council. We all have our individual plans. But actually, that's where I think you mentioned the point about the 2030. The overall goals of the strategy was Somerset to be net zero by 2030, and it talks about us as local authority decarbonising. So I think that we'd like to revisit that and actually put some timescales on that. The first thing needed for that, obviously, will be our carbon footprint, to know where we are now and how achievable it is in the timescale we've got with the resources and the financial constraints we're under as well. But yeah, I think that's the kind of, in my thinking, that's that kind of, and the action plans are being worked on at the moment. James and I met last week and we're working on those. So what we've been presented with today is a summary document. We've developed that further in the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure that will come forward in that sort of time go.
And I think just to mention your last point around the economic development strategy, that we are working much more closely. James Gilchrist is over the other side, but the teams have been working much more closely together to align priorities and see where we can get sort of more wins for council through different routes. And I'm sure that will continue and grow. I can see James nodding, so.
Yeah, David.
Thanks for that. That's helpful, and I'm pleased to hear some of the points noted. So, see how things develop. Just one question on to clarify the action plans. Will they come back to here? Because I don't notice their drafts at the moment, so they will be coming back to scrutiny.
They may not come back as a formal agenda item, but I certainly intend on sharing with all the scrutiny committee before it goes forward to executive. But again, I'm just thinking about timeframes, and I know how busy the November agenda is already, and we're keen to obviously move forward. So by one method or another, we'll certainly share it before it goes to executive.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions?
Yes.
Oh, Dixie, would you like to?
Hold on, that in front of you, Marcus.
I think some of these points that Dixie might want to make, I'm anticipating, are.
No longer.
Thank you, Marcus. So, Councillor Fitzgerald, so thank you kind of very much for the constructive comments. There's a few things I want to say. I definitely take on board Habib's comment about, in a way, the danger of that vision, which is this is what we would, in an ideal world, would really like, being misconstrued as this is how it is. And I think there are ways, quite simple ways, to do that through phrasing like we would like, like just kind of remind the reader consistently that this is the vision. And I think it might be worth just explaining as well that, one of the reasons for the vision is that the existing strategy is an incredibly unwieldy, detailed, non-user-friendly document, and anyone who's on scrutiny like it's kind of hard to access, and it's very hard for the public to access. So this was meant to be a kind of an overview for like, here are all the different strands around climate and the environment and where we would like it to be going. But I think I absolutely take the point that we need to make clear that this is the vision, not how it is. And some of those things, water policy, for example, on the level side, it's probably going to take 100 years to sort that. So there are no quick fixes for some of them. In response to Dave's questioning about it being it feeling like it's asking communities or the individuals to do all the work, I think I challenge that, Dave. I think pages 8, 9 and 10 are really, it's about decarbonising our transport system, it's about planning. I think that is there, but there is a separate section on page 11 about community engagement, and that's partly because we have been, we have had feedback from communities that we're not doing enough around community engagement, and I think that is absolutely true. We've kind of let the parishes to come up with they've got a bit of guidance from Sol, but you know, I don't think we've been doing enough community engagement. We would have loved to have done a when you have those kind of meetings where it's like people are selected by a jury. I've gone blank.
Citizens assembly.
The citizens assembly. We would have loved to have done that, and Kirsty and I kind of visited some councils who have done just that. But the costs were just eye-watering, really, and completely out of our scope. So, although the principle of that is very much what we would like to do, and I think there's a fairly good consensus between communities and the council about what needs to be done. It's like a toolkit to get there, and that's another thing that we're working on, is a kind of a toolkit for parishes. So the intention is definitely not, it's all down to the community. But I think around the governance of the wider Somerset climate strategy, it is absolutely crucial that we get the governance set up with those key players, organisations like the NHS, like our blue light services, our academic institutions, the kind of the big employers, if you like, the big policy makers in Somerset, because we just can't do it on our own. And I think one of the things that I really like about the vision document is this is what the council has done, this is what our partners have done. We've acknowledged that partnership work. Our partners have done some really good work. We work with, you know, Wessex Water, Natural England, the Wildlife Trust, a whole series of the Environment Agency. We sometimes run up against them, and there's a bit of kind of tension, but they are also our partners. We work with them as well as kind of challenge them. And so this is kind of an attempt to bring all of that. I think some of your concerns, Dave, may be assuaged when you see the detailed action document, which is very much focuses on what the council can do and wants to do. And yes, like resourcing is absolutely an issue, and it's going to take a lot of resources to set that governance structure up. And I am banging the drum to say we absolutely need to do that. And the final thing I want to say about local nature partnership is I agree with you that it needs broader representation. There's always only ever been one councillor on it. And I think I raised that earlier on when Sarah Dyke was the lead member. It is quite a bulky membership though, because it's got like partners from all over the place. So like at the moment, it's a huge group, and the council it's chaired by Georgia Dent from the Wildlife Trust at the moment. It's got like a massive representation, and so I think probably that is why, because they're trying to keep the numbers down and they're trying to make it, you know, not just a council thing, but you know, I would welcome that being taken back. I think like 2 members at least would be really, really helpful, because it's such an important part of the work that we need to do in Somerset. So, thank you.
Thank you. I just thank you for that explanation, and it's probably a very good time for me to thank you on behalf of the committee for the work you've put in on the executive over the last 2 years, year and a bit.
I think it's less than that. It's less than that. Probably. It's so pretty.
I should know, because I think it went from the time that Sarah beat me in a very important election. Yeah. It should be imprinted on my mind. And to welcome Graham in the new role. I wonder if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
Well, firstly, obviously, I'd like to thank Dixie for saying things and more than I plan to say. So thank you. But it's right and fitting that the lead member for Southern, who has played a key part in this development too. As the new boy to the game, I have to say, I read the document entirely different to Councillor Mansell. I worry when you arrive late at a party and come on as a sub in a match, you know, you want things to be going the right way, and this vision document is going the right way. I worry when councils believe that they can solve problems Because generally councils cannot solve problems, they can lead the society to solve those problems. And it's working in partnership, particularly with actually individuals, that will get us to where we need to get to. And we have an ambitious target, and I have to say that I'm totally committed to that target. My view is the government, the political parties are wrong. I don't think we have the time that they think we have, and I think we need to do everything we can to, as a country, 2030, the target is actually ambitious, but I'm ambitious for my country and ambitious for my county. So, but I would, like I said, I do have to slightly disagree with Councillor Mantle. I think that should be over the first time. That actually, or the last one, that actually we do have that wider topic working. And this document, like I say, it's nice to read one of my first ever documents and be happy at the end of it, for the challenge that it lays down. I admit the grammar on the vision thing was wrong, but that's easy solved. The real game is that wider working, and obviously the issue around having more than one person on that would be helpful from our point of view. But it's the question of whose gift it is.
Thanks very much, Graham. I'm sorry, Marcus, I thought it was important to respond to those.
It's very wise. It's scary for myself. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I mean, actually, I like a good vision. And actually, I think I read it, I half understood it. And I actually thought, yes, and we do need a vision, because I mean, going back to what we just said there, individuals and community, it's all about individuals and communities, because we need to lead the way and almost win hearts and minds. Because rest assured, there's enough white middle-aged blokes that I speak to that think our decarbonisation of the fleet is an absolute waste of time and all that nonsense. I will drive away and clear my diesel clear. But and so it's about those changing attitudes, etc. And I think obviously Dixie and Graham put that across. I would say you mentioned earlier about national KPIs. What happens when, I was speaking to economists the other day, and he was, we ended up in a big Brexit talk, and he was talking about the state of the economy and the state of the country, and how people in Singapore think more momentum, etc. What happens if the national funding grants run out? I mean, we can have a big, what happens if we've got to bring it down the lines maybe we wouldn't be expecting? I know that's probably a difficult question, but how resilient would this vision be to that? If maybe that gets it back to individual communities and their business as well.
Thank you. Well, Kirsty, you have an answer?
Well, I guess there's, the less funding you have, the harder it becomes. There's a sweet spot, isn't there, around how much you can do with the resources you've got, and communities and individuals are incredibly important part of this plan. But we do need to have the resources to be able to go out and support and develop toolkits for LCMs, town and parish councils. If we don't have that resource and that funding, then that won't happen. So there'll be more pressure on other organisations as well. I think the partnership's really key. About it isn't just all about the council. We're going to be getting smaller as a council, but we need to use our resource wisely and in the best way possible. I think if we develop that partnership and have that as part of our key part of the plan and bring partners much closer together, then hopefully we will still achieve these. But it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie. It will be difficult unless resources we have that, and that will be.
Graham.
Can I just say that my view of the future, whilst I'm optimistic for my county, I'm pessimistic for the world. I actually think that there will come a point everybody realises there is a significant need. We do need to invest, and at that point we will choose to invest as a nation. I just hope that view, that decision is not too late. Everything you do today has a greater effect than anything you do tomorrow. And as for economists, I would say
The one thing most of us agree on is the governments have very little effect on the economy, apart from making it worse. We've seen a good example of that. But no, that I know we're going to get there, and I think that we have to take the view that we will get there. I do not know how we're going to get there, but if we have to decide that that's going to happen, it's too important. And there are a few things in life that are important, and this is one of those things. So we have to be committed to it, we have to achieve it, and we have to find a way to get Marcus an electric vehicle.
Right, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any more hands raised, so I think I say thank you for that report. Thank you for the questions.
Actually, sorry, Martin, could I ask a question? I've just raised my hand. It's Helen Kay.
Oh, Helen, hello, how are you?
All right, thank you.
Didn't know it was you.
Yeah.
Yes, we can't see your hand, Helen.
I've just raised it as you were wrapping up.
No, we can't see anything in the room. We have a technical problem.
Ah, okay.
So so forgive me, but do carry on.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to welcome the vision. I think as a vision, it's fine, and it ties in with the overall council vision, which we discussed when we first became unitary. So that's great. Yeah, I am concerned about the fact that we're going to spend a lot of time measuring our emissions again. We did this at Mendip. We declared a climate emergency and then spent 2 years measuring our emissions and deciding what we were going to do with that. We then developed an action plan. We didn't have very good performance indicators for the action plan. And then right at the end of our very last full council meeting, we finally got the performance indicators in place. And we found that we'd done something like 6% of the retrofits that we had intended to do, and very little. The only thing that we'd done well on was woodland planting, but all the rest we hadn't done very well on at all. So I've been through this process a number of times. I've also been an officer about 20 years ago when I worked at Kensington and Chelsea. And I'd just like to say that back then, when this area was not so large, we had just 2 officers. And one of them looked at what the council could do itself with its own fleet, recycling targets, etc. And the other one, that's what I did, was the community outreach person that worked with local communities to work with what local communities could do, which of course is a very important part of it. I'm very concerned because I've heard rumours that our resource has gone down from 8 or 9 people working on climate. For example, Jacob Hall, the officer that we had at Mendip, has gone, and various others have just sort of disappeared or been made redundant. And I wasn't aware of this. And I'd just like to ask what resource we do actually have to make this happen. Because my concern is, it's great to have the ambition. We can develop the action plan. I am also concerned at not being able to see the action plan before it goes to executive and not being able to comment on it. Because those actions and the way we measure those actions is quite important. And I'm just sort of concerned about the resource, really, like the timing. What are we really going to be able to achieve, and how many people we're going to have working on this? Do we know that yet, or is this all part of the sort of restructure? Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. As you appreciate, we can hear you very clearly in the room, but not see you. Yes, Kirsty, we'll come back on that one.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think just around the spending lots of time measuring emissions, I think we've all been guilty of that in the past, and we kind of get the measurements too late as well. It's kind of the years gone by and we get the measurements at the end of the year. Our kind of hope moving forward is we have those on a quarterly basis. We actually have opportunity to make a change if they're moving in the wrong direction, to correct that direction. So that's work in progress, and partly why we're working with the company that Mark had mentioned to do that, so we have much more automated processes in place. I think you're right, the resources have drastically reduced in this area, so people have either left and gone to other jobs, which is fantastic for them, but they're lost for the council, there's no doubt about that. So we are down looking at the kind of the carbon net zero work to 2 officers, but I think it just needs to be really clear. We are better resourced in the kind of nature recovery arena, the kind of what we call the green estates work, and we managed to attract external funding for some of that work as well, which obviously helps. So it is a very small team. I can't emphasise enough how small that is. There are changes afoot throughout blueprint work that's happening for the one which is happening across the council. We don't know fully exactly what that's going to look like, but I think, you know, realistically, most services are seeing a reduction in their resources. So it's a very difficult time. I think we're incredibly lucky to develop what we've developed with the tiny team that we have, who are incredibly dedicated to the work that they do. And I think they've done an amazing job to produce this and to produce that, you know, energy plans and the other work that they've carried on simultaneously doing with such a small resource.
Thank you.
Can I just come back, Martin? I'm just wondering if, and this is perhaps quite a radical suggestion, that we're trying to do all this properly. You know, vision, measuring, action plan, delivery, and we want to be able to monitor everything. But we kind of know which are the things that are most wasteful of energy, for example, you know, around housing and around people's transport choices, and heating, that sort of thing. So is there not also a case for simplifying the whole process and just going for the jugular and going for the things that we know are going to have the most impact? I don't know how people feel about that, because it would be like not going through all the proper processes, but could it in fact be more effective? Just throwing it out there.
Interesting point.
I think, and I'm not one who wants to see loads of measures and kind of red tape. I think you do need some of the kind of measures to know that it is being effective and it is working. I think there's a really valid point around focusing on those that are biggest emissions, which we know are the transport and housing. Absolutely, they should be our kind of focus, but you do need some of those measures in place. But obviously, that will be a wider political decision about the shape of how that moves forward, and I'm sure there'll be more discussion on that.
We may be forced to do that eventually, but anyway, thank you very much for all your work. Thank you.
Ellen, you can't see us, can you? Can you see us?
I can see you in a tiny little box that's about 2 centimetres by 4 centimetres. Thank you.
Right, thanks. Any further comments and questions on that? Okay, we were doing well for time, but now we're beginning to get back on schedule. So the last item on the agenda, Samantha, Service Management Economy, to present an update report to members. Are you going to be okay without projection?
We'll join the meeting on a laptop, so as long as you're joined the meeting, you'll be able to see the presentation slides. We can share the slides afterwards as well.
Okay, thanks, that's fine.
I'm James Gilbert, I'm Head of Economic Prosperity. I'm going to add Samantha to the talking, and I'll try not to forget.
Thank you,
answer questions if needed at the end.
That's what just trying to share this one there.
Well, we'll get it to one. Thank you. So just a little bit of introduction. The paper report that you received is around developing new economic strategy for Somerset. And we just wanted to set out today a little bit about our approach to that work, some very, very initial findings from some ongoing evidence-based development and analysis of work that's been started. And then also to talk a little bit about how we engage with this community going forward. So we've heard a little bit today about challenges with agendas and so on, but we would like to come back and talk a bit more in detail about the final evidence-based position, about emerging mission priorities, and then ultimately a draft strategy as well. So just a little bit of background to why we've got a strategy for the council now and for Somerset now. The former government decided to cease funding of local enterprise partnerships as of the 1st of April this year. And as part of that, a number of functions passed on to offices in local authorities, including, of course, Somerset Council here. Those requirements included developing a new economic growth board for the county to ensure that this business voice to influence and direct economic growth matters in the county, but also to develop a new economic strategy for the area. So ultimately, this work is responding to that government requirements. There's also some really important local considerations though as well. We're obviously a new community council, so we're seeing this very much as a chance to set out some of the stall as a council, but also working very closely with our businesses and wider government stakeholders as to what we want for a vision. We're looking to curse lighting for economic prosperity in the county and how we go about achieving that vision collectively. It's also really key around positioning with government. We obviously have the local integration agenda, a new local government for the country, and we're seeing this document and this work as a way of engaging and positioning with them on the economic agenda, particularly around freedoms and flexibilities for local areas, including forward evolution, but also around future funding as well. The co-funding regime for local growth coming to kind of some key milestones in the next year or so around what's expected going forward. So that's just a little bit of an insight into how we're doing all of this. The next kind of bit of the slides is around our approach to development strategy. So as mentioned, the work's been overseen by the New Sussex Economic Growth Board, so it does provide that kind of wider ownership and insights and things that work all the way through. That board has business representatives, it has business representative organisations, it has council representation, and it also has wider employer and skills college representation as well. And essentially we're looking at kind of 4 key phases in the work. So development of evidence base, very much into ground this in our understanding of Somerset and both its current position and what data tells us about patient future opportunities as well. A vision of priorities, again, thinking very much into what we've heard from the previous item, but around defining what we want for Somerset as a county of resource prosperity, and also starting to define as quite a high level what sort of kind of strategic aims and priorities would be underneath that vision, and then starting to go through a formal process to develop a strategy, and ultimately once it's adopted by the council and have it endorsed by the Economic Growth Board as well. We are talking about this as being a high level document, looking with a kind of long-term vision, and then expect that probably over time get to kind of 3-year implementation plans, which is that more kind of delivery focused agenda that we've talked about again under previous items. Just in terms of then a few key kind of considerations for each of those stages, we'll talk in a bit more detail about the evidence base, and that's kind of where our principal focus is at the minute. But essentially we're trying then to understand what are key opportunities, what are key challenges, what do we know from the policy context about the county, and also what do we know from key stakeholder insights and experience as well. The vision of this is very much around what we want to achieve in the county, and then we're also really wanting to look at the policy adherence across the council and with our wider partners as well. So again, Kirsty mentioned working very closely, particularly with colleagues within climate and place around the climate vision, around the local transport plan, around the local plan, to make sure that we are sharing information, intelligence and insight to inform those case evidence bases, but also to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction when we start into that visioning and priority setting. We're also trying to kind of branch out to the wider council as well. We're very conscious that there's links into health and wellbeing and education, and for example here as well. But also very much trying to take on board work that's happening in those directions as well. Just a little bit, just a point around vertical. So just a quick sense of government agenda. Obviously new government, so policy very much emerging. But we're starting to get a little bit of a sense of positioning in terms of particular focuses on comparative advantages, and risk productivity challenges, and the likes of that. There's a little bit of a sense of what's happening there, and we'll continue to kind of monitor and engage, but also linking into the Greater South West regional partnership in terms of making sure again that we are aware of messaging that they're developing, that we can influence that, again, using this position to do so, but also that we can seek positive messages that they've established and engaging around as well. So just a bit of a deeper dive into the evidence-based side of things. We've really got kind of three key strands of activity that's currently underway to help us develop a true kind of sense of the current position for Somerset. So we have that kind of policy review, so we are looking at the legacy equal further strategies for Somerset. So that includes both local enterprise partnership documentation, but also the strategies produced by the districts and county council as well. And as just mentioned, really, we're also looking at the current policy, including at those kind of larger scales, but also relevant local policy here, both in terms of wider economic policy, particularly around local skills plans, for example, but also, as I said, connections into kind of wider thematic areas of relevance to the economic agenda. The second strand is really all about data analysis. So we have permission from work to look at, of course, kind of core economic metrics for the county, but also to look at some wider social and environmental considerations. So things like healthy life expectancy, things like carbon emissions, things like flood risk. So we've got a bit of a broad picture of the county that does focus on its economic performance, but also likes to bring in those wider insights and considerations, and that will also look at the forecast for as well in terms of future economic growth potential. And then the final kind of really key strand is around that stakeholder insight. So we know what the kind of paper will tell us in terms of the policy stuff, we know what the kind of data will tell us. We really also want to capture what businesses and wider stakeholders know and experience in the county as well. So we're also engaging into some thematic conversations, and there will also be some wider public events as well that individuals can attend. And all of this will kind of culminate in production of a SWOT analysis to then act as the kind of starting point in thinking about that wider vision and priority setting. We're currently kind of expecting this phase of work to be completed around the end of October time. And we had suggested that we might perhaps come to the November meeting, but hearing what he said, maybe we need to reflect a little bit on that. But at a future meeting, definitely a chance to consider. So what we've got so far is really just some very, very headline findings from the work that's been started to be forward to date. So we just kind of structured it around strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. There's probably some strands within a sort of thematic, really. So we've got strengths identified in relation to strategic investments. So obviously EDF in Hinkley and Access and Gravity, but also some opportunities, things like well from aerospace, clean energy, digital and data. And really positioning those to potentially the areas of comparative advantage that we can exploit, in part to tackle some of the challenges and weaknesses that we've got identified in separate kind of quadrant on the screen. So particularly the productivity challenge, we're seeking to exploit some of our higher value, more productive opportunities to take us, I suppose, in a slightly different direction in terms of some of those metrics that we've got at present where we do currently underperform. We've also got lots in there around the kind of people agenda. So we have, high levels of employment, low levels of unemployment, which is presented here as a strength and clearly is, but also means we've got really rather tight labour markets. So when we talk about economic activity as a weakness, we also can see a bit of opportunity in terms of potential to unlock talent and potential there to bring more people into the workforce, but also to look at as well how we might be able to upskill and to support individuals through the kind of skills pipeline as well. We've got lots about infrastructure, so we've got the positive of the kind of strategic transport corridors with M5 and 4, but also beyond that, I guess the typical challenges of rurality in terms of limited transport infrastructure, limited public transport, digital infrastructure, which has been talked about quite a bit today already as well, and also grid constraints. So quite a bit of place-based considerations for us to work through. Again, really strong linkages into wider agendas for planning and transport in particular. And we've also touched on as well on housing. So challenges both on availability of housing across tenures, but also affordability of the housing in the county, with a link there into kind of the phosphates agenda in terms of potential development in the county, and also to wider development constraints as well that poses at present. And then we've also got this about climate change. So again, looking into the items presented, vulnerabilities for the county to climate change, including flooding, which obviously have impacts and risks for our economy as well. And then probably finally we've got bits and pieces around, I suppose, our sort of social considerations. So overall, we perform quite well when you look at considerations around life expectancy, deprivation, etc. But we do have real pockets of persistent deprivation in the county, particularly in some of our more urban areas. We have challenges around social mobility, again, particularly in the Somerset part of geography, and also real disparities in the life expectancy across the county. So overall positive, but when we drill down deeper, gives us a bit more to work with. And then finally, we've got a bit of an internal consideration. So there's a bit in here about the fact that we are a unitary authority, and the potential that provides to build a bit more on linkages across agendas. So particularly we've pulled out as an example planning and potentially looking at more planning applications as traffic sites together as jointly done planning matter.
Thank you. Thanks, James, as well. Any questions? It's okay. I'll come to Simon first.
Mine's more of a comment really on slide 2. At the bottom, it's perhaps for example, policy coherence, including linkages to planning. What the?
It's a not very clear and apologetic way of saying we want to make sure that we do take account of what's happening at the government and regional partnership level. So we are both influencing that agenda with our own positioning, but also taking that account in terms of what potential future policy direction is. Offers, if you like, that's the vertical bit. And then alongside is that bit about making sure that we're not acting in a silo. So we don't have an economic strategy that doesn't talk to planning, doesn't talk to transport, doesn't talk to climate change, that doesn't talk to education, etc. So it was about making sure that this sits within a suite of coherent policy for the council, rather than standalone. It was meant to be short, not
Thank you. I'll move on to Habib, please.
I think Marcus was before.
All right, Marcus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
This is also set out the approach and excellent presentation. Economic development, nice, and it was a really good presentation and understanding. I think my question, I suppose, is a question is we'll talk about the partnership of some sector board, etc. Who's on that, because therefore, as a not necessarily Chamber of Trade, it's not an issue, but Somerset Chamber of Trade doesn't necessarily speak for a lot of some businesses. Then who is actually on that board? How are you going to make sure you get a fair representation? There's a lot of Chamber of Trade in different towns and always made up the shopkeepers because the accountants of big businesses are involved, and actually they could be a small money in their little unit who's actually doing an awful lot. So how do you get a fair representation, or how do you make sure that your smaller people who haven't got the time can feed in and give their opinion? Because we all get very program about it, so I can talk about West Somerset Council, but I don't know too much about and it's nice to see that you actually do recognise our that was, and obviously I couldn't go on being any meeting without talking about we can have all the economic development in the world, but you can't get us reminded to before what's the point. So that's that long to take today. How are you going to get, how is that all fixed? And I think I might even recognise the name on there. I might agree to maybe I'll so specific as well, so aiming to consult that and find opinions around spending all the surveys that they might be doing.
So that's if I can. Thank you. That's a really good question. And a fundamental challenge we face in trying to put together a board that we hope to be a representative of business voice across the county when you've only got a limited number of seats on the board. So we did an open recruitment exercise, and we asked the business to come forward and express an interest in being part of the going forward. We had about 64, 65 people decided to visit. We were shocked and really pleased that having this is one to on there. We made available 4 seats on the board, which is really going to make that really challenging. The calibre of applicants was that good in the end. We ended up making 6 seats available on the board. And as part of the kind of selection process beyond who we thought would be better representation of the individual and business itself, which is try and get geographic spreads, try and get a spread of sector interests, some different sides of the business, and actually kind of pay heed to in regards to diversity considerations as well. And not by critical black, I'm not quite sure really, we managed to arrive at that. So we've got 6 businesses across the patch, different shapes and sizes. We've also got 2 main business representative organisations on there, the Federation of Small Businesses and the Somerset Chamber of Commerce. We've got the High Tobacco Office on there as a key local employer. We've got our 3 FE colleges, plus us the Somerset Council. But we do see growth for us, those is kind of the linchpin, if you like, in terms of securing business voice over the strategy and policy and data to economic development. Those are the other things as well. So we also have regular engagement with our business representative organisations, so smaller chambers and town chambers, below county chambers, as well as the NFU and others. And we've got a programme alongside kind of our 3rd pillar, if you like, what we're calling key account management. So it's terminology, we need a bit of that, the name and brand, but basically it's the strategic engagement we do with our key business employees as well. So it's a fundamental challenge for us to try and get as much of that valuable business voice over economic development as possible, with as impact as possible with not an awful lot of results. And those are the 3 ways in which we're doing it.
Thank you. Habib.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got quite a few statements and then some pointers. Thank you for the presentation. I think the strategy, in my view, is the most important work along with keeping the council finances afloat. So some of my statements, I mean, to start with, you mentioned the fact that this is a new strategy, and I think the headline has got to reflect. I think the government, the new government is called it modern economic strategy. Why don't we call it Somerset modern strategy or new strategy? Because it is really important that people actually read the headline and resonate with that. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think the evolution gives us an opportunity to tap into the future growth industries. You mentioned EDF, Jaguar Land Rover battery factory, UK Hydrographic, NHS, Leonardo. Data, I haven't seen cyber because cyber actually reaches a lot more. Cyber security, basically globally, you're looking at about 400 billion and growing on about 8%. So that's a huge investment that we need to go into. So I think that's somewhere that we need to look at. The evolution is creating opportunities, and we need to tap on that opportunities. The other thing that the government is actually referring to is the partnership between public and private sector to ensure people and economies prosper together, but in a way that we can stand shocks. I mean, this is the most important thing in my view, that if we were to be hit by COVID-25, are we prepared for that? Or another energy sort of upheaval. So we need to sort of have the flexibility between our economic development strategy that actually takes shocks away. Avoiding overshooting, obviously, and things of that nature. I think local growth plan and devolution should give Somerset Authority ability to tap into National Wealth Fund. I think the government is actually already, pointing us towards that direction. In terms of unlisted equity and infrastructure, pension funds, part of 3% of the GDP towards research and development. I didn't actually hearing about research and development, because if we work with our local universities, there's a potential to tap in to R&D. We don't want the whole counties, the golden triangle, to sort of tap into, all the research and innovation sort of funding that is available to them. I think we need to sort of tap into some of that funding. And there's this, you mentioned 3 or 4 education sectors that we're working with, but I think we need to work with some of the universities as well, because nowadays you can do research off campus as well as on campus. So these are really important to sort of look into. Greenfield foreign direct investment and the potential of the European fund is actually essential. Potentially, we're looking at about over 40 billion pounds a year on year. But you have to have a ready, sort of oven-ready projects. So it just gives us, I suppose what I'm saying is, don't wait for the government to give a direction of travel. Prepare the direction of travel and go to the government and say, look, we have X, Y, and Z in place. And this is what we want to invest our, the future industries. I mean, I see Somerset, and I hope Somerset can actually be the heart of green knowledge economy. With all the stuff that we have in place, the battery operation, we have EDF, we potentially renewable energy. We have so many things going on. So start working towards that aim and ambition. But the most important thing is actually objective. But put the objectives in a simple English that people can actually understand. Putting some residents first, in my view. Establish private and public sector partnership, value for money, equipping ourselves for a sustainable future that is future-proof in those industries that I mentioned earlier. And I did a bit of work back in 2018-19 on the future-proofing of industries. And I'm willing to share some of that because I think it's important that where we start at the right level, and if the foundation is solid, we can actually build afterwards. The other important thing I think is actually, we mentioned strategy and the vision, but I think it's more about the mission, the vision, and the way we deliver against that vision with time. And have a little bit of flexibility. That people sort of, if you're approaching a lot of investors, hopefully to come and invest in green knowledge economy, in renewables, in NHS, in anything of that nature, they know exactly what it is we're trying to achieve. Another thing is, I think it's essential for us to get us to that place through economic zone. Like, had we not had Junction 23 with Jaguar Land Rover, we wouldn't have been able to appeal to it. So I think allow for potentially another 1 or 2 of those sites to come forward. Because if you're looking at data, if you're looking at cybersecurity, I would imagine the next 4 or 5 years will be one of the largest driven. So just some of the pointers that I'd like to sort of share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on some of those points? There was a lot of points there.
I'm not passionate.
No.
I think genuinely this is the direction of travel.
Yeah.
And we
I
have.
think we probably agree on that, but it's a lot for them to answer in one fell swoop. So, but have a go.
Lots of good points. My favourite one was the first one, I think, about economic strategy being the most important thing that will go to finance.
Absolutely.
That's good to hear. A bit about making it sound new. I think you're right. I don't know how we frame that, but it's often really important we try and exactly seek buy-in. We've done a lot of work with that in terms of business voice that we talked about earlier on, but we also need to buy into the broader community and we've got to talk about the kind of vision earlier on, because in order to deliver a brand vision for economic development, really need everyone else on board. So I think pitching and making sure that our topic is to do. You mentioned the Evo opportunity, again, I think you're right. And the economic strategy and vision work we're doing at the moment is, the idea is to use that as kind of a frame through which we kind of pitch to government our devolution arms, because ultimately they're going to be interested in, providing funding and power to us. We can articulate how we're going to help them deliver their kind of priorities around growth, particularly clean growth and net zero. You mentioned high growth opportunities. The strategy absolutely will focus on high growth opportunities. The images that were on that slide, sort of as Samantha presented, were partly indicative of that. I think so. We had Hinkley Point C on there. We had future of aviation represented in an electric drone there at iAero and the second one. So aerospace and high value manufacturing, another key strength and opportunity for us. And the last one was actually from, you mentioned hydrographic office, we can pitch it from the hydrographic office, and of course our global leaders in maritime data. And we recognise that as a big strength for us, so a big opportunity for us around data and cyber. Cyber is obviously a part of that. But alongside those high growth opportunities, we'll make sure that we're also focusing on the broader, what we refer to as the everyday economy or the bedrock economy, and those other kind of underpinning cost-cutting issues such as mobility, social mobility and deprivation, things that Samantha touched on. R&D, one thing you mentioned, and kind of working with universities, we're doing work on that at the moment. As you may have heard, Mickey's often said it in the past quite rightly, that one of the advantages of not having universities specifically on our factory in Somerset is it gives us the ability to court different universities, and we're kind of doing that at the moment. We've got conversations with a number of our regional universities, including on the potential for things like a civic university agreement. So we can essentially try and capitalise on some of the workforce and skills elements of the relationship with higher education institution, but also that kind of reaching into academia to try and around kind of commercialisation of knowledge and research. So we are doing that, with regard to our innovation centres. A number of our regional universities are really quite interested in 5% of the digital innovation over the road because of the geographical location of it and the opportunity it provides them to be able to reach out and work with our businesses in our patch on joint agendas. And the last thing I'm making down with investment side portfolio, you mentioned the gravity enterprise zone. We're also doing some work at the moment looking at kind of working out what our investment portfolio looks like. So we are kind of well positioned to be able to capitalise on future opportunities like that when they come along.
Thanks. I'm jumping forward. You get the brilliant results about the excellent points he made. I think the other big helpful insight that is election strategy and being flexible, thinking about missions and intentions, because this isn't a statutory document that has to be framed in a way that meets central government requirements and acting legal implications on. It's an opportunity for us to set that all out for sunset and also a set of things that we want to do in the future. So perhaps a really helpful decision here, it's consistent with what we see in strategies being and how the sector acts. I think it's very valuable, useful. Thank you, Mark, for the questions.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I come back on the headline, I think the headline is the most important. If you want to appeal to the outside of Somerset, people need to sort of see what you offer. So I would urge you to sort of change that headline rather than actually calling it Somerset economic strategy. Call it Somerset modern or new economic strategy, so people understand that this is something new and innovative that is taking place here, that they should be involved with if there are outside investments. So with your Chairman acceptance, can I offer that we can actually change the name a little bit?
It's not something we would
can actually
necessarily vote on in this forum, but they can take it back with them, yeah.
Can I suggest that you take it and put it to the executives, that perhaps we look at the naming, because I think what you call it and the brand you give it and working in partnership with businesses, it chimes with what the government is doing as well. So people understand that you're actually ahead of the game. You're working towards something fantastic.
Okay to take that back?
Yeah, I think that's well. it is called something you can actually in the absence of anything more defined at the moment. So I think part of it we need to go through is determining what do we want to call it. And I think that's part of the application as well, is how do we frame it. So I think that's an early.
Early feedback, yeah. Yeah.
I think you're right, it could be, there needs to be a single document ultimately, but it could be, you take chapters of it for different audiences, and you can have them slightly different things, but I think there's lots of things to think about, not just the work that's involved, which is what you say, how it's structured and how it's presented at the end.
I think, Mr. Chairman, if I may, with your indulgence, the whole idea is when you have a document, you go to the government, various ministers, and they see it as tunes with their minister. It might actually have an
Okay. I really, we're going to have to, yeah, okay, thank you very much for that. All very useful stuff. I have to move on to Henry, please.
I'm going to be far less strategic than I've been. The first thing is that everybody in this room who's a councillor can tell you who in their division actually is the main employers. Now, I think that's very important that you pick that up, because in Tom's division, he has a company called White Farmhouse Cheese, who employ an enormous amount of people, don't you? Just down the road in Claire's division, she has Mendip, the barbers, who are equal size. And you need, and I'm now going to throw you the thing, you may have been told by Paul Hickson, I have the biggest veterinary wholesale company in the country, which employs 440 people, which is more than White Farmhouse Cheese and more than Mendip, and you've never heard of them. I'm not being rude. I'm just saying that actually you need to talk to the divisional members. Its name used to be Centaur Service. It's now owned by an American company. And they want to bring in to Castle Cary in Somerset, £38 million of investment. And yet the planning department tried to turn down their application. And we need a golden thread between the economic development and the planning. And you need to be talking to each other so that we never end up with that sort of problem again. Sorry to lecture you and tell me to go away, but I'm just trying to actually make it easier for you to pick up the medium-sized employers. We all know EDF, we all know the battery factory, we all know in my division, the Yeovilton Air Base, which is one of the biggest employers. And yet there are other employers right the way through my division employing anything up to 200, 300 people. And if you consult with us, I'm sure you might get some of us to write back to you. If you don't, be rude to them.
We've exchanged about the particular case, it's a valid case study based on learning in terms of the planning process of the experience. James and Samantha have actually in terms of the strategy development and different tools that are used to engage. One of the really important points that in our ongoing work is around how we engage with businesses, so that we know when there is important planning application and the investment coming. So we will have that program of work. We're standing up that's right, where we can engage with key businesses across Somerset. Key could be scale, it could be sector interest. Our strategy tells us is really important. Could be because they're new investments Somerset. Could be because they are a kind of star business in the neighbourhood, so they should have that kind of strong relationship with the council. So we can't talk about this, but we have that kind of targeted group of business which at the council we know are really important to have a supportive each type of relationship with. That's the kind of way you approach it. A really good point you make about knowledge that the councillors have about their divisions, what's important in their patch. I say particularly when those star businesses, because work out good ways of finding out about them, but we might not know in each and every case. So finding ways in which we can have that set of conversations with members in your division capacities about what's going on in your balance sheet, what's the report. So yes, specific to the our audit centre services, for example, is a powerful one to raise. In terms of how we approach things, work to do, I think we're on in terms of getting out.
Thank you. Alan, please.
Thank you for the presentation. It's all very well. We've got my own views on this actually. We've got new government, we've got new council, the amalgamation of all the districts coming into one is one heck of a period of change. One heck of a period of change. And I feel sometimes that some of the things I hear, I started off business when I was 16, started with nothing, so I think I know what I'm talking about. It worries me, all these staff losses, all the experience from the council at present, and that's very important. You're going to start out a lot. They have contacts, they know exactly who they're in with, and they know the knowledge of it all. It just worries me a little bit. I have to be honest, that's what I actually feel. It's going to be difficult. The government's going to come down with new ideas. The council's going to have new ideas as well. The two that don't get on, otherwise we won't go anywhere. The two things that are very, very important, thank you very much, actually. Security. I've been mentioned at all. The last government was bad enough, and the new government got in, is equally as bad. Somerset Council don't seem too much worried about it, to be frank, real, I think. That food security got nothing. And it's not mentioned, it's agriculture is a very big base in Somerset, you know. You can't get a lovely day out last week. Dixie's still there, look, Dixie. Yeah. A lovely day out last week, only 10 counters attended, I think it was, which is very disappointing. See, farmers there, farming should go, et cetera. And I am disappointed that more people haven't just turned up, just so things were done properly. He was working livestock inside our reception and it worked out wonderfully well. And also I'm going to mention apprenticeships. Apprenticeships. If I was the Prime Minister, I'd probably close some of the universities and put that money towards apprenticeships, paying people to train people with their hands to do things. Because this generation is becoming a very rare thing, because to create things and make things will be around. Believe you, people just don't want to use their hands like they used to. They don't want to get in the garden, they don't get in the farming. They don't want to play cricket anymore. They'd rather talk into the phone. And when you actually go to a cricket match, that's most what you see, they're talking into the phones. I'll tell you a little story, I'm not going to bore you. I tried to get mobile phone banned from our cricket club 4 years ago, but it was actually affecting the games. They weren't getting involved. And on the hill, they didn't want to do no work for the club, that's how it was. So I took it to a meeting. I lost the vote, 33-2. Didn't worry me at all. I turned up the following Saturday to play cricket with the lads, and I landed in the car, just saw me out of the car. Straight away, got his mobile phone out, just to annoy me. I grabbed the phone off and put it back in the water. Right. So father come back and he said, Alan, you'll have to fly and land another phone number. Does that mean I fly to one? I was pretty time through the point. You know what? For 6 weeks after that, them lads were sat outside talking, no phones, and actually contributing something to the game. Of course, for reading and farming, I did making and combining, and I laid off for 3 weeks of cricket. By the time I come back, they all got like dormice again. Locked up in the pavilion, talking in the corner on their phone with their girlfriends, etc., and no interest in the game at all. So I gave up. But they still remember the incident of the mobile phone when I chucked in a bucket of water. I'm sorry to bore you, Mr. Chairman.
No, Alan, you never bore me.
I'm mad at my most got courage in my own conviction. But I do this to the point. Sorry.
But wait, I think the point about apprenticeships is worth taking on board.
So apprenticeships, we are looking at that. We know that we've got other apprenticeship starts in the county, and we're looking at what that translates as well in finishes, which is all equally important, obviously. So I think it's about that needs to be part of the other ways that is part of what we like in what our current base practitioner is, potentially the future stuff that as a leader about filling our current workforce, but also, as you say, get people coming through. In terms of security, it was, I think, actually in the slide that I did talk about, so you're absolutely right to highlight it. It is one of the key pillars of the Great South West Commission Partnership is taken. And again, it's sort of worth being seen as part of the space. Well, as you say, we have a strong agricultural presence in the county. There are positives there, as I say, in terms of potential innovation going forward, but also, as we say, in supporting the country's need, ultimately all of our need, to ensure, like you said, impact on security. So I think there's lots that we need to look at where we are.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm a bit of a tutor as well. I have educated 14 people on my farm in my time at Brightmoor and teaching them the way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I would pay X amount of money from the government to give up my time and pay to teach these lads. But without that thing, without those happening, it'll never happen unless you actually fall and build it. I'll finish now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Helen's online. Are you still there, Helen?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm struggling to hear, and I apologise if some of my points have already been covered. But I want to just make a few comments and a few questions. I sort of agree with, not with absolutely everything, but I sort of agree with what Habib was saying about the high level vision being important and needing to look across to other policy areas. And I like his idea of, you know, the green energy transition and the green knowledge economy. And I believe that some of these ideas were already debated, as I mentioned before, 2 years ago. We had the overall council plan when we first became unitary, and we had 4 golden threads in there. And one of them, I believe, was around a healthy, resilient Somerset, and another one was around a thriving economic Somerset, and there was something in there about the green economy in there as well. I don't necessarily agree with all the detail in that, but yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that the officers working on this will be making reference to those higher level documents. My concern is regarding more to do with employment, that a lot of these things, like at Hinckley or a Gravity site, I'm concerned that we're bringing in a lot of contractors, and whether or not the skills that are being developed are staying in the area. That might be a kind of complex question to answer at this meeting, and I'm happy to liaise with officers directly on that. But I'd like to see something in this strategy about keeping those skills in the area, and I believe that you are addressing that sort of, you know, low skills base that we've got. And this also relates to what Alan was saying about apprenticeships. I think that's really important. And going back to looking across at something I mentioned earlier, the retrofit thing. There's a shortage nationally, I understand, of people able to do retrofit, and I believe that there is some funding for FE colleges to be able to train youngsters in doing those sorts of jobs, you know, the green skills. And I just would like to flag that up again with officers, that I know that we get money for what's called boot camps sometimes. We had it, or it was last year we were getting money for boot camps. And on one occasion, there was some money for those kind of green retrofit skills, but then they sort of seem to fall away. It may be that we haven't even got people that can deliver those courses. But I'm wondering if that's something else that we can focus on, if we are going to have a vision that's looking at a green economy, that we're also looking at green skills and developing those green skills locally and then keeping them in Somerset, not, you know, seeing them exported somewhere else. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I was going to cover the same area, so I wonder whether I go and then you get a response to both.
Yeah, go on then. Okay. Dave.
I'll be briefer than I might have been, and I was going to make a number of similar points to Helen there. And I've also realised that we've talked about this area a little bit before, economics futures, so we've already had some input previously. And I'm getting the sense that some of that is being reflected in what you're saying, so that's good and encouraging. I was going to also focus a bit on the energy as a growth area and following, you know, what Abby was saying too. And there's a whole number of fields in the energy sector which should be growing, but energy provision, storage, but including what's happening to our buildings and our housing in terms of heating, installation, retrofit, new. So I do very much hope that that will be part of it, because it should be in there from government and from all over, something to growth area. And many people predict that it will be, and many say that it absolutely has to be there. So, so I will emphasise that, including, as Helen said, on skills development, very, very important. And so the one addition I guess I'm really making is to refer back to the document I started the day off on. There's an energy investment plan. I think I've got this, anyway, title along those lines. So I hope that's something you will take a look at as well, which has been developed. One day it may go to the executive and be adopted, but there is a body of work which maybe I want to feed into you as well there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So would you have a go at responding to some of those points?
On the very specific kind of retrofit skills point, we are already using some of our current UK Shared Prosperity Fund allocation to work with our housing service to fund. It's a small number of places for existing retrofit businesses to look at developing skills, because you're absolutely right to say there's a shortage, particularly those who are able to meet the new building regulations around this area of work. So it will give us a small number, but a bit of a pilot for it really, that we can then feed into kind of future strategy work around how that sort of agenda perhaps works, whether or not that gives us kind of benefit in some sense, and how that might go forward. There was the Bridgewater and Taunton College, so as you say, provision is also an issue in terms of making sure that there's the right quality access skills training available. But yeah, we will have that as a pilot to consider as part of the strategy work against with existing funding stream that the council manages. More generally, I think the skills piece is probably a bit about legacy in terms of major. I mean, that's something to think about a bit more detail on this agenda.
Yeah, it kind of highlights one of our kind of fundamental challenges, if you like, within our company around our workforce. Now to revert to some of the figures that show me more or less a functional but employment, unemployment and some regional underemployment, and not an awful lot of economic inactivity either. So that creates a challenge for us. We obviously want to make sure that we can secure major investments like the gas investment, which will furnish the local workforce as much as possible. And where we are integrating the local workforce as quickly or wherever possible, then we're attracting and they're able to be and we know that we're not very good at retaining people in there, as a rule. So that is one of our key challenges we need to address. So you're quite right, and that's like Swan said, that's part of our legacy of having, I suppose, around those major investments.
I would just talk about some colleagues have made as well. So I think this is an area of strategy where work to come, but where we focus very much on our work with partners, both inside the council and beyond as well. So our education policy is developing reading skills curriculum in the future, which is part of the long-term approach to the issues that Helen and David mentioned. Also, IP colleges mentioned are absolutely critical to whether it's apprenticeships or reading skills area. Things work very closely. The FBI is quite worried about the forthcoming budget. It sees itself potentially squeezed between the lobby groups of the universities, statutory education up to 16, and FE being this in the middle of the gets cut and squeezed and the further circumstances. So through our strategy, as well as the advocacy that the Sunset Council does, apply for FE to advocate by its needs for the future needs to go very close.
Thank you.
So one other point I made. Yes, go on. I made really happy to leave it with you, but I was also struck that, and I understand why you're talking about big businesses and big employers as well. I have to say though, over good parts of Somerset, the bits I know best, actually, there's lots of really small employers. And so actually, so I think it's Richard Word, I think they need to be in there as well. And I think, many of them are there because people like living in Somerset. And they come here and they run their businesses here. But I've said my area, it's an awful lot of small ones of varying sizes. I'm sure we're not alone like that.
Yeah. Do we have any more points on this agenda item? Matt?
Only that I didn't seem to receive a copy of the presentation, if who's going to have one, thank you.
Yes.
I was going to say we didn't send it, so I've got it actually.
Okay, thank you.
Just, if I may, just the question to Alan. With,
The question to Alan?
Yeah, for a change.
Oh, how long is the question and how long will the answer be?
Just.
Okay.
Just on the human side.
That's hard one.
So but basically, the train can't be train 13 people. I just wondered if they're all carrying their mobile phones.
Whether what, sorry?
They're carrying their mobile phones.
I started off training, the one when the mobile phone was sold. If you said something to them, they were listening. Right, they were listening, they were learning. As time progressed, technology took over. And I only trained two actually, the wrong mobile phone. I fell out of one because we got on my nerves. And that was mobile phone, you never listen.
Despite that, Alan, I do hope you won't be turning down an application from Samsung to set up a factory in Somerset.
So I got
Okay. I've got another, Matt, sorry.
You gave me the point this time, just expanding on Alan's point, and I guess Habib's point. I train people now in my own workshop, and because I can't get funding in from anybody, I fund it all myself, I pay for it all. And somebody down the side mentioned earlier, the vast majority of organisations in Somerset are small businesses. Should we be looking deeper than just going for the low hanging fruit of the big businesses? I mean, there might be a bit of a complexity in administration, but most of us are small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I can't get anybody to do it, because it's not wading through people, I now fund all my own training myself. Not for me, but the people who come to the workshop. It would be nice if somebody else would help me out. Well,
I think that's a point to note.
there's so many others.
For Benty. Yeah. I think that's an important point to note in the general thing. I've got Benty, then if I may, I think it's probably time to end this discussion.
Just want to say that as a division member, you know your area very, very well. You know the businesses that needs a hand. You know the businesses who are just needing you for X amount of other stuff. You should know because it's in your area, and therefore it's up. We feel that is one councillor duty that everybody should do with happiness, and that is help the businesses. And if I could get 500 big factories to Shepton Valley tomorrow, I will say thank you very much, because then all our young people could go in and learn something instead of sitting at the market force with a mobile phone. Thank you.
I think they're taking from that to do consult the members because they do know their areas. Thank you all very much. Just to summarise, I think some of the important things that come out of this meeting, the task and finish group for the water issue needs to be finalised very quickly. We've got a lot of updates and agenda items possibly scheduled for the next two meetings for November and December. And the November meeting will be the 11th, and December will be changed. It won't be the 23rd.
Sony.
I'm sorry? Oh, yes, sorry. Okay.
Notice what another councillor said earlier about the CDS programme, that it's also agreed in July, and the member was told that there had been a report in June. Would it be an idea to invite the CDS board to present to the committee in the future? I know when I attend CDS, it's very sparsely attended. In fact, I'm often the only councillor from Somerset that attends. I've not ever seen the portfolio over there. even years I've been involved in open science and learning. So I just find out, and also that again, people mentioned that, if you had a presentation, it might land more than perhaps a bit.
Actually, haven't we?
We had that in England here,
Yeah,
at the meeting.
couple of times, but, the other issue, I mean, can that be taken into consideration? If you converse? Okay. Right, can I just say something quite important? I think it's interesting. We have a lot of detail and a lot of discussion and a lot of agenda points to come up. And there's been elements of concern about some issues not being brought forward in time. But it was mentioned earlier that we've been through a period of considerable disruption. I mean, not just COVID, going back to COVID, but also unitary. And now we've got serious restructuring. And the question was asked, are we going to be able to deliver some of these ideas and services put forward? And it's with sadness, actually, and very pertinent today that this is the last meeting that Mickey and Kirsty will be at, because they're leaving us. And I say this with some hesitancy because I'm not being told this officially. I've had to find it out today. And we're not being told, I don't think, unless I missed an email. But what I would like to do is give my thanks to all the officers. It's been a difficult morning with the IT going down, but we've managed to make our way through, and to thank them for all the work they do, and particularly to Mickey and Kirsty for all the work you've done. We're very grateful to you, and thanks very much and good luck.
I'm a member of the ruling party, as it were. I didn't know either. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Then Matt, do take that back with you. But I think that and I'm certainly not making excuses, but the movement and the change of movement at the moment is so vast and rapid that I think many people are struggling to keep up with it. That's my interpretation, mine alone.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you very much.